Right. So it looks like everything on my end should be set up. There isn't, I'm going to do a little bit more digging. There isn't a chat function. However, if it's okay with both you, sir, and you, sir, and by that I mean Gary and Andy, because you guys are awesome. There are a couple points in the presentation where, you know, I ask for the beautiful people that are joining us to give me some of their thoughts, because there's no chat function. We could use the Q&A to answer questions. I think that's what that was designed for. We will do that. But when it comes time to get a couple volunteers, is it okay if I ask people just to raise a hand and we can unmute them temporarily, get some feedback, and then close it down?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'll figure out for the next one where the chat is and how we can rock and roll, because as you gentlemen will see, high energy. It's early, but I'm ready to rock and roll. Yeah, it's Angela, this is what I love.
Yeah, Angela, before we get started, do you have a camera? Or are you so if your camera's on, we can't see you. So
no, so check this out. I do have a camera for internet stability purposes, because I'm doing this unfortunately from a hotel. I'm going to rock without the camera if that's okay.
All good.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes maybe at points I'll show my video and you'll see me like doing all kinds of crazy hand motions and like doing backflips as I'm doing this presentation, because that's part of it too. But at the moment, no camera. I'm so sorry, sir. I feel like I just let you
It's
down.
okay. And you did preface that before, Angela. You did with me. And I was like, all right, I like to see your face and all that. But yeah, Shane and Mauricio and Larry and Kevin and Gary, 2 Garys, and me, that's 3 Garys. Oh my God, that's overwhelming. Ernest, thank you. And Bijou, I see you on many of our Wednesday webinar series. So thank you guys for joining us. I think we're about ready to start. I am recording this. Andrew Belossi is here, of course. Andy, I'd love you to interject your insights from the Snap One perspective. Angela, great to hear you and get energy that I can relate to that kind of energy. Absolutely. I think Matt's on here as well. Good to have you guys on board. I think we're ready to go. You know, we do these each and every Wednesday. Thank you for participating. As always, I do these, I try to find, and Andy and I, we're always trying to find the best out there for these discussions. And they're primarily discussions for you, the Snap One local partner. And what does that mean? That means there's choices in all these locations. There's many different technologies we've got. I like to try to pull them in and get, you know, organic with them, if you will. This is an informal discussion, but you know, if you're stuck on something, if you're looking for new materials and solutions, that's why we have these discussions. Next week, I'll give you a really quick plug. I'm doing the Eero webinar. So I've got 2 sessions next week, the fastest Eero ever. I've got a Snap One Partner Rewards webinar that I want you guys to join. I want you guys to understand from a granular level of what your partner rewards can consist of. Okay, we've switched a couple things, and this year we've rolled out a new program. So definitely join Emily and I on that and how to really maximize your experience at Snap One. And then coming up May 11th, we'll do Nest cameras. So thank you guys. Look at the event section, register for those. Like I said, we're doing a lot of grand openings. If we hit your region, if you will, like Andy said, Salt Lake in a couple weeks, San Diego next week, Houston tomorrow. Welcome, Houston. So we're getting out there and saying thank you firsthand, giving out some prizes, feeding you guys some lunch, but more importantly, just getting everybody together and talking about your needs and how we can continue to facilitate that here at a very unique distribution scenario, and that is Snap One Local. So guys, let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to Angelo. Angelo, great to meet you up in Minnesota today. Take it away, buddy.
No, thank you. It is incredible to get the opportunity to not only talk to your incredible people, but also get a chance to hang out with you, Sir Gary, and you, Sir Andy. So it is awesome to meet you. For all of the attendees that are starting to enter the room, and for some of you that were early, I love it. I can't wait to talk to you today about AudioQuest. A couple quick things. One, if you have questions, throw them in the Q&A. I love questions. They get me even more hype. So you can't even imagine. I'm like on cloud 9 now, because I'm getting the opportunity to discuss AudioQuest with all of you, but ask questions. And trust me, the engagement, the energy gets even greater. Now, in the event that we just want to comment on something, raise your hand and I will unmute you temporarily if everybody has a mic or if everybody's okay with that. And I'd love to hear from you because there are points in the presentation where I 1000% need and want to get your input, but I've done enough stalling. I probably should formally introduce myself. And my name is Angelo. In a second, you'll see my calling card and there it is. That is my first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And to the right of my information is that QR code. Take a photo of that QR code. You kind of already guessed it, but that is going to give you my contact information. Feel good reaching out if any questions come up. If we're talking to a client and they ask this out of left field, out of the box style AudioQuest question, reach out. You can text, email, call. I am 1000% here to serve all of your cable questions and all of your cable needs, but I'm not joined alone here this morning. He loves it when I actually pull up his contact card. And yeah, I'm curious because we're so far away from each other, Matt. I'm used to only being separated by about 65 miles. I'm a couple hundred miles, probably actually 1,000 miles away from you at this point. So Matt, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. You know what, even though we're not so close, I could still feel your energy. It's like you're right here with me.
Mission accomplished. Awesome. And what's new in your world? What do you have to say to the incredible people that joined us here this morning?
I am happy to have this as our first ever webinar we're doing with the Snap One crew. We've been working with the team before Snap One acquired Control 4 for several years, and I'm excited to kick off this Snap One relationship kind of officially today, now that it's available on the Snap portal.
I love that. Sir, thank you. Is there anything that they should know about your contact info? Can they also reach out to you at any point? Like, are you one of those guys like me that accepts phone calls at midnight?
Much to my wife's dismay, yes.
Ah, love it. All right, cool. So we're all on the same page. All right, enough about us. Let's talk about AudioQuest. AudioQuest was founded by that man right there, and his name is Bill Lowe. And Bill Lowe founded AudioQuest back in 1980. So 42 years ago. In fact, I think that 42nd anniversary, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, may have been like last week or it was this week. So 42 years ago, we're based out in Irvine, California. Bill Lowe quickly realized that cables can't make your system better. All cables cause harm, and that the only way that we can start to get less of that harm in our entertainment is to make cables that make the signal less bad. And that was built, or that I should say, is what conceived our do no harm philosophy, which is all about doing the least amount of harm to our clients' entertainment. We stand by this do no harm. It is the foundation that we are built on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a few slides. Now, as mentioned, we are based in Irvine, California. Yes, we have big warehouses. Yes, we make prepackaged goods like HDMI cables and RCA cables and optical cables, but we also pride ourselves in custom work and being able to build the product out in Irvine, California, and QC it and make sure that the product is good to go for the client. So just a few tidbits about the office and about AudioQuest, but now I get to my most favorite slide in this entire PowerPoint, and this is where I'm going to need a little bit of help. And this is where I really want to get the opportunity to know a few of you and find out what kind of passions you have. What do you love to do for fun? Maybe a good or really unique hobby that we might have. Is there anybody out there that would love to share with us this morning a hobby, a passion, something they love to do for fun?
Well, since everyone, everyone's standing around, and I'll get it started. As most people know, I'm passionate about skiing. So skiing is awesome.
That is an incredible passion. So I got a couple follow-ups for you as I wait for a hand to be raised. So How often do you go skiing?
Well, this year was a pretty unique year. I actually went to Austria and lived with a cousin for about 2 months and worked from there. So I skied 30 days total this year and about 390 miles downhill.
Wow. I mean, look, I'm impressed. And I'm sure you've been skiing for quite a while. For you to be able to do that, you probably have been skiing for what, 10 years, 5 years?
Well, yeah, I had I not grew up, but you know, when I was in grade school and stuff, did skiing originally around the Cleveland area. So it's not really skiing; it's more just like sliding down a hill. And then about 12 years ago, like took a hiatus, and then about 12 years ago, got back into it. So.
Oh, I love that. Hey, one more, and so one more question, and then a statement. Okay, here we go. One more question. What kind of skis do you have? So I mean, have you bought, have you gone to the store like and gotten like these awesome skis? Like what's the make? Where I don't know much,
so, good questions, Angelo. I actually typically travel with 2 sets of skis. I have a pair of like downhill, like giant slalom skis, so more for like like racing, so on groomed slopes, and those are atomic Redsters. And then my other skis are all mountain skis that I use more for like powder and that type of stuff, and those are Nordica Enforcers.
Oh man, they sound like the real deal. I haven't done any research, but they sound like the real deal. And here's my statement. This all makes sense now. I understand your virtual background behind you as well. So it all ties together, which I love. Okay. Sir, thank you. That was awesome. Now, as I'm looking through the participants, I don't see a hand raised yet. That's okay, because check this out. I'm going to ask somebody else that is already has privileges to talk. Hopefully he's available still. Gary, Sir Usher, if you don't mind, I'd love to find out your passion as I get to know you a little bit better here this morning too.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you so much. And I think you're trying to tie in the fact that maybe we're experts at something and our brand awareness, something like that. I'm a marketing guy, so maybe that might be the angle, but sure, I'm an audio engineer. I've got a recording studio. My father was a record producer from the 60s and 70s. I grew up in the Los Angeles area, just having a passion with music. I'm a guitar player, singer. And like I said, the engineering and production background that I've got being in the recording studio since I was a young kid and a guitar player. I've got probably 25 guitars, everything from Les Pauls to the Stratocasters to you name it. Lots of fun stuff, but you tie all together, make music, and it's a lot of fun. So, it can be very meticulous, and there's a lot of practice that's involved, like Andy's and like any of us. We have to put our passion behind our creative design, if you will. And I think that's what a lot of our audience does on a daily basis. They dream up something and they sell it, not in terms of monetarily, but that's part of it. But they sell that idea to their end users, and they put together components and they try things, and they utilize the Snap One product line, to accomplish just that. See how I tied that back in? But there you go. A little bit of a music background. I'll pass it back to you, buddy.
No, I love it. Hey, one quick follow-up question before I move on. And by the way, it sounds like you know what I'm doing here, but that's okay. Check this out. So you're a guitarist, or I'll use my own words here. You're a renowned musician, is what it sounds like. Now, do you own a guitar?
I own 25 guitars. Sure.
You own 25 guitars, and of those 25, if you don't mind, sir, which is your favorite? And you might tell me that's a loaded question. They're all your favorites. They're like your kids, but I'm sure you do have one that you love to play more than another.
Sure. I mean, let's just go my Les Paul. No, let's say this. My 1969 Martin acoustic guitar D35, which was made famous on many records that my father gave to me, but most famously on the Simon and Garfunkel Bookends album. If you've heard America or Mrs. Robinson, that's the guitar, and that's my guitar now.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, gentlemen. That was awesome. I'll do one last call here from the attendee standpoint. If anybody has a really awesome passion and just wants to hit me with a hand that's raised, I will unmute and we can get into it. I don't see anybody yet, but that's okay. Feel good. If it comes to you a little later, feel good raising your hand. I still want to get a chance to know each and every one of you that have joined us here this morning. Our clients very much could have a lot of the same passions. They might be into skiing. They might be into music or playing the guitar, but they also love to be entertained. They love to sit in front of the television and watch the TV show, the movie, the concert, that sporting event, and enjoy that entertainment to its fullest. But here's what happens as we introduce cables, as we introduce other pieces to the entertainment system. we get what is called noise and distortion. And we start to limit that experience for the client because all cables add noise and distortion. They all do. Even AudioQuest cables will add some noise and distortion, but we do a very unique thing here with the ingredients that we use and our recipe to help minimize some of that noise and distortion out of our client's entertainment. And I'm sure at this point, we got a whopping, let's round up to 16, say 20. We have an awesome 20 people on this call, and I'm sure at least half of us are wondering, what is noise and distortion? Where does it come from? Well, you're wondering, and guess what? I'm going to tell you. So there are two forms of noise and distortion. There's what's called internal noise and distortion. This is called internal noise and distortion because it's created from inside of the cable. All of the materials on the inside, the metal quality, the conductors, the insulation will cause this noise and distortion. But there is also something called external noise and distortion. And this comes from the environment. Things like radio frequency, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 5G, 4G, all of those signals can be brought into our entertainment as noise and distortion. So we're going to talk about what we do different to minimize these things. But I'm sure we've all heard this before from a client. And I love reading this slide out. So let's do it. I've been told, ... quote, all cables are the same, end quote. They either work or they don't work. We've all heard this before. In fact, actually, no, I don't think any of us here believe this. If you do, raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you because this is how discussion works. But if not, yeah, I don't think so. I think that we all understand that cables can make a clear difference. But actually, and he's kind of gone through this presentation unscathed here so far. Matt, please hop on video. I want to see your face. I want to see your face when I ask you these questions. All right, here we go. I've been told all cables are the same. Have you heard this from a client before?
Never. In all my years, never has anybody ever said anything like this. Are you kidding me?
We're not supposed to, don't lie to the group. You're lying, but that's okay.
Can you sense my sarcasm? I'm not sure it's coming
for
through.
Sure. I got it loud and clear. We've heard it before. They either work or they don't work. But I got a more important question, and I'm going to really open this up. This one is something that hits near and dear to all of our hearts. It's separate from this cable question that I asked you. No, Matt, come back. Come back, Matt. Thank you. Boom. Check this out. On the left, we have the beautiful Kraft macaroni and cheese box. Convenient, hits the spot. It's okay. And on the right, you have that incredible bowl of mac and cheese that I believe, I might be going out on a limb here. We haven't done this before. So let's see. The Hecht family makes. Does the Hecht family have like a magical mac and cheese recipe? Or did I go out and I fell off the cliff?
Actually, my daughter took cooking classes online last year and she makes Bobby Flay's mac and cheese. And it's actually pretty awesome.
That sounds incredible. Hey, by the way, we live 65 miles apart from each other. Haven't gotten an invite to taste this mac and cheese yet. I talk about mac and cheese all the time. It's okay. I feel like we're going to change that here after this presentation. But this is a question that I would love. I'm going to extend it out. I know there's no chat, but if anybody feels passionately about mac and cheese, please raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you. I bet we're all shaking our heads no. All mac and cheese is not the same. That Kraft blue box is not the same as that homemade mac and cheese that you're able to make with the fresh ingredients and the fresh cheese. And we get creative. Does she put bacon or any kind of crab in that mac and cheese? What's in Bobby Flay's mac and cheese? Quick tangent.
Yeah, I don't know. She makes it. I'm not the cooker. It's got like 3 different kinds of cheeses and 2 different kinds of breadcrumbs and some seasoning, and it's delicious.
So you're telling me ingredients matter?
Well, I would have to say yes.
Ingredients do matter. That's what separates the Kraft Blue Box from the homemade mac and cheese. And believe it or not, it's the same when it comes to cables. We know that ingredients matter here at AudioQuest. So we focus on those ingredients, which I call the superior materials. We give it a superior design that allows for us to get a superior performance. We focus on key ingredients like the metal quality that we'll talk about, the noise dissipation ingredient, and also the solid conductors that we use to drive performance by minimizing noise and distortion. And now let's dive into, again, how we're able to minimize this noise and distortion. And there it is again, the internal noise And remember, this comes from inside of the cable. So all of the material on the inside will cause this noise and distortion. So we need to use better materials. And we start with ingredient number one, or material number one, and that is the solid conductors that we use. We use solid conductors whenever possible. By using solid conductors, we are eliminating the strand-to-strand interaction that happens in stranded bunches. We are also starting to remove some of that magnetic pull that occurs between the conductors. And by doing that, we're able to drive performance by lessening noise and distortion out of our clients' entertainment. This is one of our foundational technologies. So it is very important. I mean, I'll even give a couple seconds if anybody wants to screenshot this or take a photo of this slide. Specifically here, we're looking at an HDMI 48 cable, an AudioQuest one versus a free one. You'll notice solid conductors on the right, whereas on the left, they're stranded bunches. By using solid conductors, again, less noise and distortion because we're removing some of that magnetic and radio frequency pull and lessening the strand-to-strand interaction. So that's ingredient number one. When we get into ingredient number two, we're going to talk about the metal quality. And before I get into the metal quality, I'm going to show us all a picture. And I'm going to sort of apologize, kinda, in advance for the picture on the left. And check this out. And the slide simply asks a very, very important question. Which road would you rather travel on? And I'm going to change that actually. And I'm going to say, which road would we rather cycle on? Or maybe rather jog or run on? And we have the road on the left that looks a little fun. I'm not going to lie, in an ATV or a Jeep, I'd be all over that. But on a bike, probably not. Whereas the road on the right is a freshly paved highway. Just to help move this presentation along here a little bit. Sir Andy, again, if you don't mind that I call on you, I have a question for you, sir.
Shoot.
You're the best. All right, here we go. Do you cycle? Have you ever ridden a bike? Do you ride bikes?
Yeah. I mean, I don't ride now, but I've had bikes in the past and ridden, yeah.
Awesome. Do you also drive a car?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. I know that was a silly question, but I had to ask, okay. Would you feel comfortable driving your car? And I probably should have asked if it's a Jeep. It might be a Jeep. If it is, cool. But would you rather drive and ride down the side on the left here or the one on the right?
Well, I mean, I think you got to put it in context, right? If I'm looking for like performance and just like driving a car, clearly the one on the right. If if I'm off-roading and I don't really care about what happens to the car or if I have that type of a car, maybe the one on the left would be okay. But for pure performance and drivability and enjoying driving, like going out for a Sunday drive or something like that, certainly the one so on the right.
That's the magical answer. You gave that textbook style. I am giving you a virtual high five, and I'm getting close to giving you a virtual hug. That's it. Done. That is awesome. That is textbook. Yes, I totally agree. And I bring up roads because we're going to use them as an analogy when it comes to looking at the metal quality that we use, and specifically when it comes to looking at the copper that we use. Everybody else uses something called a conventional auction-free copper that looks a little like that road on the left. You'll notice there are tears, pits, quote, potholes in the metal that cause noise and distortion. The foundational copper that we start with here at AudioQuest is called a long grain copper. And this long grain copper is actually processed, manufactured, and pulled slower to remove some of those imperfections off of the metal. So we have less of them. We're getting very close to a freshly paved highway, which means we're going to start to get less noise, less distortion in our entertainment. But we don't stop here. We also focus on different variations of this copper. And it's important for this group to understand this because as we recommend things like RCA cables, as we recommend things like subwoofer cables, you're going to notice that the copper is changing as we start to work our way up the lineup. And that is one key difference between a Chicago RCA and a Red River RCA, is that we switch from long grain copper to perfect surface copper and then perfect surface copper plus. And what's happening here is as we're moving up in the copper quality, we're pulling it even slower, we're treating it with other solutions that help remove even more of those impurities off of the copper and allow us to drive performance by minimizing noise and distortion. But there is something else. Yes, copper is cool. I get it. But I like silver, and we do also use silver in our cables. And silver is the highest conductive metal that we know of. And the more silver that we introduce in the cable, the less noise and distortion I'm getting in my entertainment, because I'm introducing more of a highly conductive metal. So feel comfortable bringing up the silver aspect of our build quality as well. And I'll go over where silver comes into play. The silver varies anywhere from 0.5, I'll repeat, 0.5% silver, all the way up to 100% perfect surface silver, but we'll talk about it. Now that's tackling internal noise and distortion. Let's shift gears and let's take a look at the external noise and distortion. And this comes from the environment. So again, that radio frequency, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 5G, 4G signals, they're everywhere. And they can be brought into the entertainment as noise and distortion because all cables have metal on the inside of them. And because metal is a conductive metal, or it just conducts those signals, we need to do a better job of protecting those conductors or that metal from the environment. And we've been conditioned to believing that typical shielding is enough. Just like how a Greek soldier would use that shield to have those arrows bounce off, is what we've been told before, but that's not the case. Noise doesn't bounce off like arrows. It needs to be absorbed. It needs to be drained. It needs to be dissipated. So in comes what we call noise dissipation. And this is a very key ingredient for us here at AudioQuest. It's so key that we actually offer different levels of this noise dissipation technology. And we're going to actually touch on 4 of the 7 levels here today. And that is level 1, 3, 5, and 6. I know, talk about a choice of numbers that I picked here this morning. And we're going to start foundationally with level 1, which is directing energy. All of our cables are outfitted for what we call directionality. We have arrows on our cables, and we tell you and the client how to plug the cable in. When the cable is plugged in correctly, we're able to drain away and minimize the high frequency noise, so that radio frequency, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 5G, 4G signals away from our entertainment. So it's extremely important that we make sure to plug the cable in correctly. Now, he doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to call on him. Hey, Matt, in the event that I accidentally plug this cable in backwards, because at times, I'm sure you've done it before, and you know, I don't know if I have, but I'm not here to toot my own horn. Will it still work?
100% yes.
But will it work as well?
100% no.
Okay, so it is very, thank you. It is thank you lots. Like, I appreciate all of this. So it is very, very important that we are mindful of the arrows, because this is one of the foundational technologies, and we take that extra step to be able to drain away that external noise and distortion. Level 1 is found across the board. When I pick on HDMI specifically, level 1 comes in at Pearl 48 and Forest 48, along with a couple other key products, which we'll talk about in just a few slides. As we start to maneuver our way up our lineups, we start to introduce additional technologies. So here's what I mean. When I get into level 3, I actually now introduce multiple different layers of shielding. So a level 3 introduces a metal shielding. It also introduces a carbon-based shielding. So we're using additional ingredients, or in this case, shielding, to protect the conductors from each other and also reduce that environmental noise and distortion to drive performance by minimizing noise and distortion. And level 3, and again, I'll pick on HDMI here for a second, is found at Cinnamon 48. It's found at Carbon 48 and also in Vodka 48. And when we show our clients, if we have multiple products available to us, it's good to unbox the product and put the product in the client's hands and actually have them feel the difference between a level 1 cable and a level 3 cable. And that's very important, because the cable does get thicker, and that's because of those added layers of shielding. And I know we were talking about it earlier before we got started. Feeling the cable is very much also validating what I'm telling you here as well and what you're telling the client. So let's continue to build off of level 1 and level 3. When we get to level 5, all of the previous technologies are included. That's why we're building upward. But here I'm introducing very unique materials like graphene and global carbon. And this is, the graphene is a very high loss material that we wrap around the conductors to again start to protect them from each other and from the environment, and then introduce a global carbon that wraps them completely. And again, we're driving performance by minimizing noise and distortion. We also have some other very unique technologies like our dielectric bias system, which is found in our reference or our flagship Interconnects. And this incredible piece, I mean, I know it looks like a security device, but it is not one. This is something that actually sends a current on the jacket of the cable and keeps the cable running at its peak performance. Not to mention there's a radio frequency trap built into this as well. And that is where things get very unique when it comes to looking at level 6, and when it comes to being introduced to our Firebird 48s of the world, or Dragon 48s of the world, and we're driving performance at a whole other level. But enough about that. I think it's very important that we take a look at what all of these lineups look like, and we dive right into HDMI. And what I'm going to do here, and actually I'm going to hit the pause button for a second. Boop, paused. I don't see any questions yet in the Q&A, but are there any questions? Is it, and maybe the question that I have for everybody here is, do you own any AudioQuest product? Which I probably should have led off with, but that's okay. But if there are questions, please let me know. Hit the Q&A, hit the, I was gonna say the chat, or raise your hand, I'll unmute you. I'd love to hear from you. And then we're gonna dive into the HDMI 48 family, along with some of our other cables with some detail. And Matt, feel good as well. If you have questions or anything that you want to add to the group or to the session, please let me know. So let's see if there's any questions that come in.
Thanks, Angelo. Yeah, I'm monitoring the Q&A if anything comes in. So feel free to type away or unmute.
We'll give everybody a second. I know people are probably typing. They're typing away. They are coming up with the best questions possible. In fact,
I think it's just your thoroughness that that's throwing everyone from. You're just so thorough that you're covering everything.
I appreciate that, sir, so much. I really do appreciate that. That's like an ultimate compliment. So thank you very much for that. And I keep looking. My eyes are glued to this Q&A, but there's no questions yet, and that's okay. So let's dive into the lineup. Let's start the discussion. Let's take a look at what's offered here. And we start by looking at our HDMI 48 family. We're looking at Pearl 48 and Forest 48 on up to what's called Dragon 48. And what you're going to notice is that those ingredients that I talked about start to play a key role in separating cables from one another. So that Pearl 48 cable benefits from solid conductors and long grain copper and the level 1 directionality. But when we bump up even just one step up to Forest 48, a key thing that gets introduced is silver. And again, remember, silver is a very highly conductive metal. And even at 0.5% silver, we're starting to drive performance because we're minimizing a greater amount of noise and distortion than even Pearl 48 would. And as we continue to work the way up the lineup, you're going to notice that there are some things that change. You see silver becomes at greater values. There's 1.25% and 5% and 10% and 100% perfect surface silver. The levels in the bottom end up changing. We go from level 1 to level 3 to level 5 to level 6, and that continues to drive the performance piece. And it's really all about finding where the client is comfortable and how much noise and distortion they're looking to get out of their entertainment. And we'll talk about that more in just a few slides. Changing categories for just a second. And if there is any questions on HDMI 48, hit the chat. I'd love, again, to answer all questions here or have any kind of discussion that comes in. Take a look at the analog interconnects. Yes, things like Tower and Evergreen and Golden Gate and Big Sur and Sydney. And then when we take a look at the RCA or the XLR models, excuse me, on the bottom, going all the way up to Yukon, you're going to again notice that things are changing. All of these cables, they benefit from solid conductors. But as I get from, or as I move from a tower and an evergreen up to a golden gate and a big sur, the metal quality on the inside changes. We go from a long grade copper to then we get to a perfect surface copper and a perfect surface copper plus. And then we start to introduce different layers of that shielding or that those levels of noise dissipation. So again, we're driving performance as we're working our way up the lineup. But that shouldn't say that even a client that was to invest in a Pearl 48 or a tower cable at an entry point versus something that may have been given to them for free or might not share the same core values isn't going to make a significant difference as well. Great spot. Again, I think to just pass to Matt to see if there's anything he wants to add, because I'm going to switch topics here and talk about some other technologies in just a second. HDMI, check. Analog interconnects, check. Anything you want to add, Matt?
No, sir. As usual, you got it all covered.
Beautiful. I love this group, by the way. I have 15 awesome people this morning. I love it. All right. So I'm switching topics, or I should say technologies, for just a second. And let's take a look at optical cables. Now, just like how all cables add that noise and distortion, optical cables do that as well. And what's different with an optical cable is that it uses light to transfer a signal. So we need to use different styles of ingredients here to minimize even more noise and distortion. And what differentiates us from that free cable or the competition is that we use something called a brass ferrule connector that goes all the way into the head of the cable. And that actually helps to correct some of the timing. It helps to streamline the light transfer so that we're removing impurities and we're removing noise and distortion. There is also different synthetic fibers that are used as we go up in our lineup. And by using different synthetic fibers, again, we're focusing the light to start to remove some of that noise and distortion. So I know the big one, optical, always comes up because people say, wow, but it's only light. Just like with digital, they go, it's all ones and zeros. But even with it being just light, better quality ingredients are going to drive performance by minimizing noise and distortion. And then the final category that we'll talk about here today is subwoofer cables. And when we take a look at our subwoofer cables, we have 5 different models. What you're going to notice here is that, yes, everything is still using solid conductors. The metal quality changes as we work our way up the lineup. I mean, all of this is probably sounding repetitive to you at this point, but long grain copper, then we start to introduce silver on up, and then we're using different levels of that noise dissipation to, again, drive performance by minimizing the noise and distortion. And I outlined it this way, and I'll be quite honest with you. I think that it works really well because what I hope you've noticed is that the key ingredients that we spoke about earlier in this presentation, they, for the most part, stay the same across all of the AudioQuest cables. So it's not like trying to learn a line from the start. So like the solid conductors, that's shared across the board. The silver, again, it's introduced in pockets. The noise dissipation, so the different levels of that, again, gets introduced in different forms. So that is found across all of the products that we make here at AudioQuest. This is our AudioQuest US retail price book. Feel good. There's normally a QR code. There isn't. I'm sorry, but I will share this with everybody. I'll find a way to throw it towards to Andy and also to Gary, and have Andy and Gary share that out to everybody as well. So feel good looking through the US retail price book. That, my friends, ends the product discussion. And before I start to get into the client discussion, any questions, any thoughts?
Just Angelo on that. Gary always does send out a recap at the end of the week to those who participated in the webinars. So we'll make sure we can include that link if you send it on the pricing.
Well, awesome. I will. And what I'll also do is I will send each of the slides that I went over for subwoofer and for HDMI and for optical, so that you could share that with everybody as well, because they're great tools to have, even as just pullouts, depending on if that's one product category that we focus over another. So thank you. Thank you so much to Gary for doing that, and Andy for letting me know. Okay, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I'm still looking at the Q&A to see if there's any questions that come in. We're going to start this incredible AudioQuest and client experience here in about a minute or so, but I do want to give a little bit of time to see if there's any questions that come up. Again, feel comfortable. If you have some thoughts, if you own AudioQuest cables, maybe you're doing something just incredible and you want to share with us what you're doing, and that's what's really working for you and your teams. Feel comfortable raising your hand. I'll unmute you. I'd love to hear from you if you have mics. I know it is early. I'm sure most of us are either based, and maybe this is an East Coast crowd or a Central Time Zone crowd. Is there anybody here in Minneapolis? I'll come find you and give you a virtual high five, or actually an in-person high five, because you're here. Up? Well, there, Ernest. This is a great way. Hey, check this out, Ernest. Big time high five. Minneapolis to Madison, Wisconsin. I think it's like 2.5 hours. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 3. I'm crazy enough to make that drive to come give you a high five, sir, just because you used the Q&A at nearly 4. Oh, 4. Shane says West Coast, 6:38 a.m. Oh, Shane, I'm bringing the energy for 6:38. And thank you so much for joining us and having an early morning here with us. So Matt wants to answer this one live, which is fine. Matt, if you want to answer it live, what do you want to add?
I'm just clearing them for you. As you answer them, I'm making sure that we clear them so you don't keep looking backwards.
Oh, I appreciate that, sir. Whoa, talk about partners. I love that.
Who knew Matt was such a nice guy?
I'm not.
About it.
I'm not. Don't start spreading rumors.
I was about to say, you and I both found out something new this morning. So I'm just kidding, sir. That is awesome. Ernest, you and I might link up. Maybe I'll make the drive and give you a high five for using the Q&A. You guys are awesome. Thank you for doing that. If there are questions, feel good continuing to ask. Let's start this magical journey, though. Let's talk about AudioQuest and your clients. And check this out. We're all great at what we do. We're all experts. I call you all, and myself as well, trusted advisors, because we give recommendations and we help build the experience that the client wants, because everybody works hard and everybody has an entertainment passion and everybody wants to have that experience that they deserve. So as we're doing that, we're being human with them. We're getting to know them. We're understanding what kind of passions they have. We're understanding maybe what they're looking to get out of their entertainment. We're trying to figure out what pieces we can put together in the great puzzle that is an entertainment system to deliver what they deserve. And as we're having those conversations and as we're getting to know the clients, we're chit chat back and forth. And then at some point in the conversation, we might go, by the way, Mr., Mrs., Miss Customer, my most satisfied clients, they choose AudioQuest. AudioQuest has this do no harm philosophy. This do no harm philosophy was built on this foundation that cables are bad. They're all bad. But AudioQuest uses key ingredients to help minimize some of that bad, minimize the noise and distortion to give you the entertainment that you deserve. And by the time you go to finish the word, you deserve. Some of the clients will go, stop. Ernest, Andy, Matt, you guys were my friends a couple minutes ago. You were talking to me about my passions, which I told you about. Skiing and playing the guitar and mac and cheese. And now you are trying to sell me things. So stop. And you're going to go, yeah, well, first off, I'm so glad that you brought up those passions, but can I ask you, like, why are you telling me to stop? And they're going to go, well, I already have some. Well, they're all the same. Well, they cost too much money. Or like, yeah, I get them for free. And you're going to say, yeah, I understand that. But remember when you told me all about your passion for skiing and how you have these incredible skis that you went out to the store, and I might call on Andy here again in a second. You went out to the store and you purchased, and I told, actually, Andy, can I borrow you for just one more second? This is going to really help me tie everything together here, and I'm curious because like I mentioned, I'm not a big skier. Where did you get your skis from, sir?
Well, I actually always kind of test ride my skis. So the one set, the Atomics, I was testing on a mountain in Austria, and then the all mountains that I have, the Nordicas, I tested in Killington, Vermont.
You're the real deal. So I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
Let's see how I want to phrase this one. All right. So
you won't offend me.
Ballpark.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Cool. Because this is the first time I'm meeting you. So I'm like walking on thin ice, I think, but it's all right. It's all right. Because I think we have a great relationship now. So check this out. Ballpark. How much would you say, ballpark, you don't need to be exact, some of these skis cost? And if I put you on the spot, you can tell me you don't want you plead the fifth.
That's fine. I mean, I think in the context of it's a passion of mine. So, and I think most people are like that. If they have a passion for something, that be that cars or stereos or skis or golf or whatever it is, right? They're willing to spend good money on it. So my skis, the ones I bought, the Atomics I bought in Austria, they were kind of end of season sale. So I actually got a great deal on them. I think normally they're about around $1,000. Nice. I got them for significantly less. So that's retail price. The Nordicas, I think those are retail about 900, but got them end of season sale. So I don't remember exactly what I paid for them. So.
No worries. No, but this is great. So as we're having this passion conversation, check that out. I just learned a little bit more. If I was to tell, I'm going to borrow you for just like 30 more seconds. If I was to tell you that I will go into a sporting goods store today in Minneapolis and go buy some skis that are probably going to be about $110-ish, maybe less, maybe a little more. Are they going to be the same as the ones that you have? If I told you, actually, let me back it up. If I told you that they're going to perform identical to what you have, what would you say to me?
I would say, number one, talk to a professional. Someone at a store that's a trusted store that knows something about skiing. That would be the first thing I'd say. I would say if you're a beginner and just learning to ski, it's not going to make much of a difference. Honestly, I would. It's very strange. I just had this conversation with some people when I was skiing. It's amazing when you're not as good of a skier, you think that the skis make a significantly bigger difference than what they do, right? Because you think that there's some straight, it's the placebo effect of like, oh, there's some technology in them that just makes me a better skier. When in reality, they do make a difference, and the quality of the construction and the different, like, again, just like a lot of things, and with cables, there's skis for different applications, right? So that there's a reason I have two sets of skis, and I could have a lot more because there's a lot of different, types of snow. Are you being aggressive on the slopes? Are you, kind of racing? Are you doing different types of racing? Like there's slalom, there's different skis for each one of those disciplines, let alone just the kind of consumer end of things of, how you want to do. So, they can make a very big difference. I think in your analogy, actually ski boots make a lot more difference than the skis themselves. The boots are, I would compare the boots more to like the AudioQuest cables, right? Like boots are the most important piece of gear in skiing. And if you have bad ones, your feet hurt, they're loose, they're too tight, they're whatever, that will make a huge difference in the not only in your performance as a skier, but just all around, from the mental effect and the experience and all that.
I love that. Look, and thank you for actually swinging that back around. Yes, that is what I'm going for. That is the ideal message from this slide, is that the ingredients that go into the things that we're passionate about, and let's pick on the boots that are used for skiing, matter. And it really is the same across the entire spectrum. And again, as we're continuing the conversation with the client, hey, remember when you told me about that passion and how every little ingredient that goes into that passion of yours and the gear that you use for your passion matters. Well, it's the same in the entertainment industry. It is the same when it comes to cables. AudioQuest knows this. They use better quality materials. They use things like solid conductors and long grain copper, perfect surface copper, and silver. And they have different levels of a thing called noise dissipation because they know that minimizing noise and distortion is going to be able to drive this performance, and they need to use these key ingredients to do so. And if you'd like all the performance of your entertainment today, my most satisfied clients, they might budget a 20% or a 25%. And then we're able to work our way down from there if clients object to the percentage. Also, it could be the same if we're looking at product individually. Maybe we are recommending a cinnamon 48 or a forest 48, and we start with that recommendation, and then we're able to work our way down in the event that we've exceeded budget, but that it helps to bring these solutions up to the client because the ingredients, they matter. And I promise as we're having this conversation, we're going to be able to peel some of these layers of noise and distortion away and give our clients back the entertainment that they deserve. All right, I leave us all with his quotes. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, said this guy. Guy is Wayne Gretzky. Looks like he plays for the Rangers. He seems nice. But this is very much a Michael Scott quote. If anybody here is familiar with The Office, Michael Scott is an incredible regional sales manager for a paper company called Dunder Mifflin. And he also said this quote. And what he meant by this quote is that you need to shoot your shot 100% of the time. Clients will not know if they want to purchase something if they don't know that that something is out there and that something exists. So feel good bringing up AudioQuest as often as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been incredible here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for giving us some time. I do want to open it up though. I mean, keep the questions coming. We have some time here that was built in for questions and also any best practices that anybody here wants to share with us, or it could even just be just a random question about life. I'd love to hear from you. So at this point, we can really open it up, and I encourage Matt, Gary, Andy, if there's anything that any of you want to continue to add, feel good adding. But at this point, I'm going to zip my mouth, wait for some questions. And Gary, the show is yours, sir.
Hey, I love having an animated discussion, but I think this weekly webinar series today has been the utmost in colorizing. I really appreciate your presentation today. Very unique approach. I think we did get enough out of that, and I love that because you're tying in passions, obviously, and Andy kind of alluded to it throughout his answers to you, and so did I. Our audience here is passionate about understanding every ingredient in their installs. And Andy, if I can bring you into this, it's I kind of follow your lead in terms of, we all do, in terms of who you're picking, who you're choosing for Snap One local product. Cabling is can be very passionate, man. I'm in the stores every day, and you will see product allegiance, right? And you will see and our partners coming in and will not differ from their passionate installs, right? And so I want to continue to allow my team this new product, obviously, as a choice. Andy, when you were looking at AudioQuest and you were developing this to put on e-com, et cetera, what were some of the finer points that attracted you to the line? And also, is the whole entire line available to us at Snap One Local and e-com?
Yeah, so, well, very great questions, Gary. Yeah, I mean, number one is we had an existing partnership with AudioQuest through Control 4. And then we looked at it and said, we have our cables. Obviously, every company is very proud of their products, but we also understand that the Snap One products fill a certain need in the market. Look at all products, right? However, we believe in giving our partners choice, right? Even if it does or is a little bit competitive with our product. So that was kind of the impetus of working with Matt and the AudioQuest team of, hey, we have our product here. We'd like to get a curated assortment of AudioQuest products and roll that out to the broader organization, and they were willing to partner with us in that way, beyond just on the Control 4 portal. So now we've got a broader arrangement with them, As far as the product assortment, though, right now we've got a set number of I think about 50, was it 54 SKUs or something of that nature. Kind of an assortment of cables that blend in both with our cable and wire strategy, our audio strategy. We're pros by audio, right? We brought in some really nice XLR cables from AudioQuest. We're happy to take feedback from our partners to say, hey, we need you to expand and maybe offer this cable or that cable. And I know that in talking with Matt, we're very willing, and so are they, to provide a broader assortment if there is the need and the demand from our partners.
Yeah, especially when you're talking commercial, Andy. XLR is something I use all the time, and I would definitely like to integrate some of the XLR components into my home setup, my studio setup that we do these Zooms from. So definitely, I'm looking forward to, as you guys have mentioned today, utilizing this product, seeing how we feel, the organic part of this, which I think we're all very in tune with, how that makes a difference and how that changes in a good way or alters our future install design. So definitely great product to bring on board, guys. I can't thank you guys enough. It's been a really animated and fun discussion. I love your approach, guys. Let's do any other Q&As really quick before we give their time back to them. We are going to do another session in a couple of hours. That's 9 a.m. West Coast. So if you had to drop off, or you want your team members to join and get reacquainted or get acquainted with this product as well, you have another opportunity. Just register on my Zoom links. And and Andy, and I think you guys both discussed, I will be sending out this presentation as well as the recording of this presentation back to your inboxes on Friday morning with a complete recap. And that's going to go out to everybody who registered, regardless if you actually joined or not. So it's like, hey, over the weekend on Friday night, you can go back to it and it'll be in your inbox, even if you did register. That's why I urge you guys always to register for the weekly webinar series. If you can join or not, you still will get the content to you delivered. Guys, is that it? Matt, anything else from you? Hey, yeah, I think all four of us are going to continue to work together, whether we plot out some live events, getting you guys counter days, all sorts of options for us to move to the next chapter after the unveil, if you will. It's not totally unfamiliar product, but like we say, let's get touchy-feely on this stuff. You're going to see it in our shelves. Andy, that stuff is already out there. You did your initial purchasing, etc.
Oh yeah,
how we look into great.
We've got there are a few SKUs that current global supply chain has wreaked havoc on, but we should be expecting those, I think, near the end of May. But that's only a handful of the 50 some odd SKUs. So we can certainly get everything that you see on the web is also available to get through your local partner store. Yep. And looking for that feedback. So if there's anything else you guys need, just let us know and we'll look at expanding that lineup.
Great inventory in the field. Hey, really quick, guys. I had a question when you were running past this, Angelo. When you're talking about subwoofer connectivity, give me, really, did we choose SKUs, or how did you really appropriate the difference there? Obviously, there's a sonic difference, but these are packaged differently, etc., but the same basic materials. Can you just really detail really quickly your subwoofer details again on the product line that we have?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And
because it does
Matt,
come up, we have subwoofer lines and so forth, and I've heard a number of different conversations like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to look at something different specifically for that purpose.
Yeah, and so you know, the SKUs that we chose were based on your subwoofer assortment from your episode premium subs that you sell to the Def Tech subs that you sell. So we chose the assortment based on the products that you housed and were available through your e-commerce.
Awesome.
Angelo can tell you a little bit about them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the very unique thing about doing a cable that is designed specifically for a product, in this case anyway, is that our subwoofer cables also come with the ability to ground them. So you'll notice that there is almost like a little cable that's hanging to the left of each of them. So a black lab, an Irish short, a boxer, yes. And shame on me for not bringing this up sooner. Yes, solid conductors, the metal, the noise dissipation, all is there, but having the subwoofer ship with the grounding piece becomes a very unique thing. Whereas traditional RCA cables. If we were to do something separate from, if the client did need to ground it down the road, they would have to purchase something like that separate. But they're designed specifically for subwoofers. Matt, remind me, because I don't have it in my notes here, which ones are carried over at Snap AV from the 5 that I've showed?
I'm gonna say Black Lab and Irish Red for sure.
Awesome. I wasn't sure if they go all the way up to Husky, because that Husky has what's called the dielectric bias system, which we did talk about as well. And that DBS pack does also help trap. It's kind of like it's a final frontier in the external noise and distortion, because it traps a lot of that radio frequency and keeps the cable running at its peak performance. That's a great question, though. I'm so glad that you brought it up. And for the next session, I will make sure to bring up that grounding piece as well.
Yeah, and subwoofer, the importance of geometry and technology and insulation on the subwoofer cables is really important. A, it's usually a long run and there's a lot of opportunity to pick up noise. And B, it's almost always run right next to a power cable because of a powered section on the woofer. So the quality of metal, the insulation material is hugely important on a subwoofer cable. Some might say more so than other types of analog cables, because it's just proximity to power can introduce more noise.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, I don't know if doesn't look like there's any more or any questions left on there. So Angelo and Matt, thanks for joining, and we'll look forward to doing it again in a few hours. And I know Gary's been working through being resourceful, working through some challenges of traveling and trying to host the webinars. But thanks all for joining. Yeah, as a reminder, we'll send out all the information to you as Gary always does at the end of the week for not only those who attended, but also those who registered for the webinar. So thanks a lot, and look forward to doing it again in a couple hours.
Yeah, definitely. You know what, Angelo, you and I will hook up maybe 20 minutes prior to start time so I can hand over the credentials to you and board my plane. Asif and Dan and Dwight and Ernest, double Gary and John and Kevin and Wilson. Thank you guys so much as always. I will catch you next week on another edition of the weekly webinar series. Next week is Eero. Snap One Partner Rewards the week after that. And then we're going to conclude the month with Nest Cameras. Andy, Angelo, Matt, can't thank you enough. Like Andy said, catch you in a couple hours. We know you're busy out there. Stay safe, everybody. Catch us in our Snap One local stores. Let's go get it, guys. Thanks again. Look in your inbox on Friday. From all of us, we'll see you next time.